That's good. Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and get started. We'll call today's work session to order. We'll start out today with our delegates. And I'm going to pass it over to our Vice Chair, Mr. Smith, to address our delegates with a delegate statement. And we'll just read it once. So if you're speaking today, please listen up and listen out for what he's got to say.
Okay. Looks like we have maybe three or four, and I'll just read this once. So those of you that are going to address the board, listen up. Here we go. Thank you for your interest in addressing the Hamilton County Board of Education. During your presentation, please address the board as a whole, not individual board members or administrators. Also, please do not present complaints or concerns you have about an individual employee of the school system. If you wish to voice those complaints and concerns, you should contact the central office and ask for a meeting with the superintendent, since the superintendent is responsible for employees. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. I'll tell you when you have 1 minute left. So, Mr. Watson, looks like maybe you're up first.
Thank you, board members, for hearing me. My name is Jim Watson. I'm a semi-retired teacher with 3 concerns for health and motivation for our students. The first is something I talked about a couple years ago. It's radon. I've conducted professional developments for TDEC and have encouraged the school system to do this. Knox County, about 8 years ago, started this program, found about 100 rooms with elevated radon levels. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer, and lung cancer is on rise. There's a way to simply test each room. I think it costs $7 or $8 per room to test. It's a little bit expensive to mitigate, but once you find radon in a classroom, and some of these levels, I've been in classrooms where it was 4 or 5 times higher than the limits it should be. You're putting students in a room where this is, and they're breathing this air. They can't avoid it, but it can be fixed fairly easily. I think it's about $10,000 a room to fix. It took 5 years for Knox County to do that. And the interesting thing is we have basically the same geology as Knox County. There's even a rock called the Chattanooga Shale, which is federal government 50, 60 years ago deemed it as a replacement or an emergency source of uranium if needed. And uranium decays to radon. It could be any place. I encourage everybody to test their house. Matter of fact, if you have an individual house, you can test your house for nothing, and it can be fixed. To show you the seriousness of it, the town of Farragut now has all new construction has to be quite wired, really piped for radon. And like I said, as far as I know, Ivy Academy is the only school that's been tested. Every room is safe, except one room was slightly elevated, and they put some plants in there to remove the radon. So I'm encouraging you to look into this problem. I know Mr. Smith mentioned it at a meeting back when the town halls were going on, that you looked into this before. Look into it again. It's definitely a potential problem. We have no idea what classroom has it, what house has it, how much there is in each room until it's tested. The testing is very simple, and I think there's even a person who is certified as a tester in Hamilton County now. So I ask you to look into this problem. The second issue is something called Tennessee Clean. I volunteer with the Tennessee Wildlife Federation to promote Tennessee Clean. In January, they're going to put it in front of the state legislature to, as far as our students are concerned, to remove plastics from the environment. Researchers are already finding plastic in humans, in placentas. We probably have plastic in our body right now. The Tennessee River is, of all the rivers that have been researched, has more floating plastic than any other river. The Yangtze, the Rhine, it's here. And Tennessee Clean it's a much bigger program. It's a comprehensive program to not just reduce litter, but plastics are the things that concerns me with our students. So I would ask you to look at Tennessee Clean, and I'm asking the board to endorse it. It looks pretty good to pass. It's setting up a commission to deal with all kinds of environmental problems related to litter, recycling, even bringing in businesses. I'm just asking the school board to look into that. My third concern is on athletics. And I don't know if you saw the August 21st paper, Hamilton County second-rate athletics. Yes?
1 minute.
Okay, thank you. As a coach of 34 seasons, I can tell you I've coached boys and girls soccer, I've coached boys and girls wrestling in 34 seasons, and I can tell you they pretty much hit the nail on the head. Athletics are in decline. And there's a number of things that can be done. They mentioned it. So I'm asking the board to look into this. I know, every educator knows that parents are the number one factor in motivating students. Everybody knows that. But when parents can't, or as a supplement, coaches are usually the second. And I can attest to that for personal experience. Coaches can motivate faster than teachers. So I'm asking you to look into this, see about improving our athletic facilities, and I know you can't answer questions, but if you have any more information or you need any more information on any of these three topics, Sherry's got my email. I'll be more than happy to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Lawrence, Jerry Lawrence.
Thank you for the opportunity for me to voice my concerns. But since COVID, for the last 3 years, it's not uncommon for corporations in the free world to do away with a lot of benefits, try to save money on account of COVID. Well, Hamilton County Board of Education doesn't realize it apparently, but they're wasting a lot of money in maintenance vehicles by allowing them to drive them home, taxpayers paying for the gas. In April, I took and did a simple study. I cannot get an accurate study. I have to know how many gallons every vehicle holds, how big the gas tanks are, but just take 20 gallons per vehicle, approximately 100 vehicles per week, comes out to be $2,600,000. That's a lot of money that could be used on these other programs, on teachers a pay raise, on more school resource officers. Because if you had somebody from counting department sit down and find out how many vehicles they are, how many gallons each truck uses or each vehicles, the number's going to be staggering, a lot more than what I've come up with, because I'm just using a basic 20-gallon gas tank. And I just think that the board needs to look at changing that policy and saving a lot of tax dollars. But, excuse me, and that's my biggest concern, because there's a lot of money that could be used in other areas that's going to benefit educating the children. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
Sir. Thank you.
Ms. Sharp?
Good evening. Chairperson Robinson, Vice Chair Mr. Smith, Jill Black, our representative. My name is Gertha Lee Sharp, and I'm here to share some concerns of the South Chattanooga community as it pertains to Howard School District 11. As an alumni parent and grandparents and community members, we are proud of the continuous effort and dedication to Howard School administration, faculty, and staff, including the students. However, it's heartbreaking to see them face the numerous overcrowding challenges that's being presented. When my children were in school, attended Howard in the 1990s, enrollment was about 800 students with well within the 854 school seat capacity. And the school had sufficient cafeteria space, students had a place to eat, enough lockers, plenty of academic classroom space, extracurricular classes, vocational labs, and a safe and less crowded environment there. But the last 4 years, our enrollment has soared from approximately 900 to almost 1,600 students, making Howard School have the largest enrollment in Hamilton County. Just this past week, there was an article released by the Times Free Press listing Howard High at 180% capacity. Following Howard was Clifton Hills Elementary at 137% and Eastlake Academy at 91%. These three schools are in the same feeder pattern and pose significant overpopulation difficulties, even more so than some of the other schools noted by the district in that same article. As growth at Howard began to skyrocket or have skyrocketed, one of the district responses has been to add portable classrooms. That is simply not enough. The school has enrolled over 300 brand new students since August of 21 and continue to enroll, some weeks on a daily basis. Just this year alone, there have been numerous amounts of teachers having to share and rotate teaching areas due to space shortage. The school's lunch block is over 4 sessions because of the small cafeteria, and many school bus riders have had challenges getting to and from school due to overcrowded buses. As we continue to see student enrollment at Howard, we implore you to act with urgency to consider these immediate requests. 1, provide additional permanent structures around the school to accommodate surging growth and increase seat capacity at our already overcrowded campus. Rebuild and repurpose the old gym into a larger facility to serve lunch and additional classrooms. Ensure adequate transportation to eliminate overcrowded buses. Install additional safety measures such as better campus lighting, security cameras, secure entries and exits, and safety officers to enhance security for this very large campus. Staff to ensure proper cleaning of the buildings to eliminate high levels of illness circulating among students, faculty, and staff, and provide more counselors and social workers to address the needs of numerous students who frequently face severe trauma in their lives. As you know, the need is great. Yet Howard High has 165 years of rich history where thousands of graduates bravely stood the test of time, difficult obstacles, and multiple challenges that were thrown in our path. That never die tiger spirit is still alive today, and the community of Howard Hustling Tigers stand before you in solidarity. Thank you for your time and immediate attention to our requests presented this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp.
Thank you for all of your information.
Mrs. Sharp, can you provide us with a list of those requests? But I will say this, and I'll talk about this a little later on in committee meetings, but this is not off of our radar, and we did talk about this in our board retreat. There will be a facilities committee meeting on November the 28th at 5:30, in which your concerns will be, well, your concerns alongside with ours about that situation will be discussed.
Ms. Favalon, I hope I'm saying that right. Okay.
Good try. Thank you.
I just whoever wrote this, it didn't write very well. Was that you?
I wrote it.
I just didn't read very
That's a
well.
first.
How about
Sorry.
that?
Hi, I'm Angela Favaloro, and thank you for lending your ears and let me express some concerns. Most of this is just reiterating some of the things that you will be listening for second read. Last month, I spoke a little bit about the safety and security policies, and while I know that a lot of policy will move forward right now, I just want to reiterate that there's some thoughtful discussion in policy committees and things like that about being really clear and thoughtful about what safety and security are to the different learning communities that you have. I hope that we're able to build some guidance with educators. A lot of educators have a lot of concerns about safety and security, and then our families and students also have that, and a lot of those definitions look different depending on where you're at in our district. In our security policy, there's some really clearly defined definitions on like how principals, what they report, what those things are. They're very clearly defined, and that would not be able to be interpreted or, superfluous across the district depending on who the principal is or what school you're at. In the safety policy, I kind of feel like that's a little more vague, and there's a lot more leeway for that in a good way sometimes to be able to be at the discretion of the principal, but I also think that there's a lot of liability and a lot of issues that could arise from being at that discretion, and I would hope that we could come to some clearly defined options, especially since some of our schools operate with very well with SSOs, and they would have clear parameters before they would call law enforcement in to be dispatched. But those schools that have an actual SRO, just being able to say, hey, Bob, come here, I think there should be very clearly defined parameters on when that happens, regardless of the dynamic of the school and how that staffing situation is. So I hope there's some really thoughtful discussion, and I hope that families and educators and also the SSOs and SROs are brought into that conversation, so and education to families so that people can feel safe in our schools. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you to our delegates. We appreciate your time today. We're going to move into our presentations, and today we'll be hearing from SSC, giving us the quarterly review and update. And just for the public's awareness, SSC is our janitorial service that works within our schools.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you for letting me come and speak with you today. So I'm Jennifer Frizz. I'm the Regional Vice President with SSC. And I wanted to come and just talk for a few minutes and share some concerns and some things that we're doing within our schools. But to be upfront and honest, we're not where we need to be in the schools. I shared this last week with several people, and I'm not very happy about it. I take full responsibility of that, and I am personally committed to correcting the things that have happened in the schools where we're providing our services. As you'll see, our logbook that we use, and I've gotten some feedback. Yes, ma'am.
We can't see your presentations. We can see it here.
Oh,
Yeah, we're having technical
Oh,
difficulties.
okay.
If you'll just give us 1 minute.
sure.
This is why we need Sherry.
This is why we need 5 gig. We need better internet, period. The shared service isn't working
Just while we're waiting, do you mind to tell us your position?
Regional Vice President.
Regional Vice President, thank
Mhm.
you. I think if you-
Chairman, while we're
Yeah.
waiting, Ms. Friz has been here before, but in the past, presenting, you've either seen Shimshan Racine, who was our rep here. There's some changes that have been made there, or you've seen Val Emery, who you've seen multiple times. He had a situation that he had to address, and so Jennifer works with us very closely. Day-to-day operations, has really been on the ground significant amount of time the last 2 months, as some of the challenges that she's talking about have presented herself. So that's why you're kind of seeing a change in who's presenting.
Great. We just saw a glitch. Oh, and it glitched again.
Oh.
So we're almost there.
Okay.
It's like AOL dial-up.
Oh,
Can y'all just add that in the budget?
There we go. We got it.
you got it?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's us.
All
Thank you so much.
Okay, absolutely. So as you can see from our logbook, and I've gotten some feedback that from several principals I've talked to, that because they're seeing the same issues, that they've lost some confidence in the logbook. So as you can see, compared year over year, just from August and September, we saw an increase in requests, which further validated our needs for accountability from me, especially around the cleaning need and the supplies. So we've implemented recently what we're calling our roving teams, especially on the weekends and especially during the breaks, to mitigate the trends. Over the last 2 weeks, while I've been on the ground every day, we've seen this week alone just a big decrease in the request for supplies. I've had trucks coming out of Knoxville pretty frequently. And then not only just getting them here, but making sure that the staff has them available so that they can get them in the areas, but also the accountability from the managers, making sure and physically checking them. So when I'm in the schools, I'm out checking the dispensers, making sure there's soap, paper towels, toilet paper in all of the dispensers. So our staffing update. So currently we only have 19 open FTEs out of a staffing goal of 336, which is really good. What's tending to hurt us now is the call-outs. We're anywhere between 12 to 20 call-outs a day in the district. Which is already, the staff that's already working is working harder to make sure that they can get the things done within the school. So last week, I talked to Val, who I report to, and told him I wanted to put in place very quickly what we're calling our holiday dash for cash to reward our associates who are coming to work, plus encouraging staff to come to work. So every learning community for the next 3 weeks, we will do a drawing for every associate who comes to work during that period of time. We'll give them a $500 reward for the winner out of each learning community, and then we'll have also 3 additional gift cards for those associates. So with our hiring since August, we've hired over 125 associates. With that, we have lost 100 associates. Some that just don't show up after onboarding, some that'll work a day or two and then decide this is not what they want to do. We've had over 900 applicants from all of our platforms where we use our recruiting in our national and our local recruiting efforts. And we've used over $39,000 in overtime just in October alone to continue to staff the schools. In October, we had Unity Day, which was our anti-bully prevention day. Not only this was a way for us to stand up against bullying within our schools, but we use this to unify the teams that work within the schools. So our organizational chart, as you see, we have some blanks in there. We've made some organizational and leadership change based off some data and some feedback within the district. I want to make sure I highlight this. Stephanie Richardson has been here for several months and she is our personal contact here now. And she is our bench director that provides support to the other unit directors. In addition, the Midtown Missionary Ridge, we have bench support that as well as that has been here for over the last 2 weeks, as well as myself. We have additional support, management support coming the week after Thanksgiving for an additional 3 weeks, and that is to work on our training with our associates as well as to support our onboarding. Since last week, we have filled the regional director of operations and the Missionary Ridge and the Midtown manager. One is starting tomorrow. She's already worked here before, so she will be really quick to get up to speed. And the other two start on December the 5th. Until the break, I will be here every single week, working within the schools as well as rounding with Dr. Sharp and meeting with principals. So one of our retention efforts that we have is our GEM Awards. We have 6 every single month within the district. And then recently the one on the left is our GEM of the Year. And all of these receive monetary awards within the district. Our safety first, that's one of our top things that we really strive with our staff, is to keep things safe. So we have 6 a month for our Safety 365 winners, and we really focus this around our new associates because most of our accidents or injuries that happen within the first 90 days of work. So projects that are going to be completed over the break as well as over the weekend, and anytime that there is a project going on, that information is shared with Dr. Sharp that I send out by school, and then we make sure that we share that with our principals. So we've had, last week we hit some areas that we felt were a high priority, and we will have more this weekend and next week, as well as the following weeks until we get where we need to be. During the break, we're going to work on our detail cleaning in the classrooms, our offices. We're going to use our Kivac machines for our bathrooms. We're also going to move teams around so there's flexibility within their schools. So a school that like a Howard can go to a Howard Connect. They can go over to Calvin Donaldson as well as they finish what they are doing. So to reiterate, I just want to make sure that all of my focus right now is accountability with my management team, ensuring that they're in the schools, making sure that they have the supplies and the resources that they need to get the job done, and that they're in the schools holding their staff accountable and making sure the staff has everything they need.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the Kivac machine? I don't know what that is.
So a Kivac machine is, it's like a huge power washer.
Oh, okay.
And you fill it with chemical. You can clean, you can disinfect a bathroom from top to bottom. It's got a scrubber on one side of it, so you can use it on the floor. You can spray every single thing down. We spray it down with a chemical, and we can let it sit just like that overnight as long as we push all the water down the drain, and it'll be completely sanitized from top to bottom.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I didn't know what that was. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation. Mr. Keene, you have a question?
Yeah, what is your, just if you have it off the top of your head, what's your average salary you're paying your workers? Let's say
$13.34.
An incoming worker, $13.34 an hour?
That our average, yeah, is $13.34. We have some that are more in the high fill areas, the mountaintop, because they have to drive up there, and then we found some other neat areas that we needed to increase to be able to pay that. But right now, our current average wage rate is $13.34.
So what's your starting wage then?
$13 an hour.
And the second thing, you outsource the grounds. What budget are you or if you could get that to us, what budget are you using, for the upkeep of the grounds, the landscaping, things like that?
So I can get that information to you.
Mr. Keen, I think the original contract was to be second year. I think there was a 3% increase. I want to say the grounds was just over $1 million.
Okay.
Mhm.
Do you have another question, Mr. Keen?
No, that'd be
Okay.
it.
Mrs. Jones?
So I may have missed it. I may have missed this because I had to step out, call about my kid. I apologize. But several of the schools that I represent and some of the other schools that kind of fall into the areas surround it have been complaining about, and I heard you say accountability, management accountability to you, and then management holding their staff accountable. But I've heard some things that I just was like, if I did that, I probably would be fired. Like visitors on the job. It's more night shift situations. So visitors on the job or not being efficient and effective in what they're doing at night, so that the daytime staff is being overworked. And a lot of our daytime staff has been with us forever. They're parts of the student community, and the fear for a lot of the staff are talking about in administration, the fear of running the daytime staff away that have been committed because of the lack of work ethic with the individuals at night. And then they also talk about I had one teacher, one administrator tell me that she came into the school one night to do some late work, and they were just literally in there like this. And I was like, wow. And then I'm a member of a community organization. I went to an event on a Saturday at a school and was bombarded by my sorors. Who cleans this school? We got here today, we had to wipe tables, we had to do this, we had to do this. And I was like, we have somebody to do that. And so I'm giving those examples. It's just a few of the ones that of many that I've heard. But I'm very concerned about that when it comes to us looking at RFPs and renewals, because, I'm not going to say that our previous was any better. And I know a lot of it attributes to the work ethic of the people that are hired. And you can present a certain way and then get in the job and behave another way. So we understand that. But I guess to what extent is the accountability for those, if you can actually get proven examples from administrations and documentation to say, hey, this is what's going on in my building, or these are the things that are happening in my building. To what extent is the accountability? Are we looking at replacing people? Or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, and that's a great question. So and it's happened in the last week, is that if I've gotten a call from an administrator that said if there was a child in the building, that employee is going to be suspended. That's not acceptable behavior. It's not an option to say, well, we're not going to do it again. They're going to be suspended and in pending investigation. If we receive a call that they're on cell phones, not doing their job, they're going to be documented out, because that is not helping the schools in providing a clean environment for the students or the faculty and the parents. And that's just not acceptable. I don't, if they do something on social media, we have a social media policy, we're going to hold them accountable, and more than likely they're not going to have a job.
And I just have one other question.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
chemical that you talked about that you all spray on the, and I cannot pronounce,
Tyvek.
What is the, I'm moving toward this whole eco thing in my home about chemicals. So what is the risk of exposure for our children and our staff with this chemical that's sprayed to sanitize?
It should be very low, because we use this machine at night and over the weekends and on breaks. But this is all hospital grade chemical that is safe. There are a lot around different types of cleaning where you're not using chemicals anymore, and a lot of people are going to that. We're looking at certain things like that, even from floor equipment to where it's more oxygen based to clean. But they're very safe within the school. We really tell them not to use bleach and chemicals like that, because it's not. You don't know what allergy a child could have or a teacher.
Mrs. Black?
Hi there. I just wanted to ask you if it is clear, if you all are communicating clearly with administration about how they need to request special services for events. So I'm the District 11 representative for Lookout Valley. They had a ribbon cutting for their brand new Future Ready Institute. They submitted requests for cleaning of that space because lawmakers from the state level all the way down to local level were going to be there. It was a huge event. Started making requests like 2 weeks ahead of time. No one ever showed up. No one ever showed up. The kids cleaned up that space the day before the ribbon cutting. And so I just need to know that you all are communicating clearly with administrators and principals how they're supposed to request like services for events that are outside the normal cleaning, and if that's clear, and what the response is, or how they're supposed to follow up if they haven't heard anything, like what the chain of command they're supposed to go through is.
So prior to Mr. Racine leaving, that once the managers talk with the administrators, if there is an event in the building, that is how we find out, is through those events. And so if they were not getting that feedback, it would have gone to Mr. Racine to make sure that that was done. If it's an event if there's an event system, and I'll be honest, I'm not sure if they use a different event system, but for us, it would be something that is the communication between the principal and the manager to say, we have a basketball tournament here, or we have Jamboree here on Friday, so that we can have that open communication, what's expected. So I will find out and follow up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Connor?
So I just had a question, because I know in your contract it says that all of the people that work in the schools have been background checked.
Correct.
What about someone who's a temporary employee, specifically listed as that? I know that in one of the schools in my district, there was a person who was cleaning in the evenings who was listed as a temporary employee for nearly 2 years. Has that person been background checked, and is there a different way that they've gotten in, or?
Well, we don't have any temporary employees.
Okay.
We have everybody who came through our side, who comes through our fingerprint. We have to actually fingerprint and send a district and get a yes or no.
Okay.
So we send for fingerprints. But if there's a name, or you can give me more information, I can find out. But I don't have anybody on my staff that's temporary.
Okay. I know that they're no longer here. Go ahead.
Temporary is going to refer to someone that's not assigned to that school permanently, so it's a temp replacement. But
Okay.
all of their employees have to go through the same fingerprinting ours.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, we can't even rush it, even if we need them. They can't go without a yes or a no.
Okay, excellent to know on the record, because it looked that way on paper, and so there was a lot of questions about somebody. That person's no longer here, so
Okay.
I won't name names, but that was part of the question on the exit.
Absolutely.
Mr. Smith?
Not a question, just a couple of comments. I learned about 35 years ago in my own personal walk that the first part of recovery begins when you admit you got a problem.
Yes, sir.
So I appreciate the first thing out of your mouth, I think I heard, was we got a problem.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, you do.
Yes, sir.
You do. And I think back when we negotiated this contract, I didn't vote for you guys.
Yeah.
And the reason I didn't was because you were so much more money. Well, the pleasure of the board was to hire you, and all these promises were made, and they're not happening. They're just not happening. I have kids come to me all the time, been working with kids all my life, and they'll say, Mr. Joe, I'm going to do better. I'm going to do better. I promise I'm going to do better. And I always say to them the same thing I'm going to say to you,
Yes, sir.
is I'm from Missouri.
Yeah.
Unacceptable.
Are there any more comments or questions from the board? Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we will certainly be looking to hear the next update, and we do hope
Absolutely.
to see improvement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Before we move on to our next topic, I wanted to just welcome the Howard students that have entered the boardroom. Thank you for being here. We're excited to have you. So welcome. And I know there's a number of Howard alumni as well in the room too, so thank you for being here. We appreciate your support. We'll move into our discussion of the bus contract and gas prices. Dr. Robertson?
I'll defer to Ms. Thurman unless she wants me to kind of go through.
Yes, I met with a group of bus drivers, I guess it was last week. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know what the price of gas has done of late. And I think I heard today that diesel hit the highest point ever today. Am I correct? I think I heard that today. And so we have a formula in our bus contract to kind of compensate for the if fuel prices increase. That was not keeping up with the price, how quickly the prices have gone up. It's just not keeping up. Some of our bus drivers are actually making a little bit less money because it's costing them so much fuel. Not only that, there's another thing we discussed, the availability of fuel. We have heard that there may be a fuel shortage. I don't know what we've done about that. I know we probably don't have any reserve. I don't think we do. But that's something that I would like to know. And so I think you have worked on a formula here to maybe kind of compensate for some of the increase in gas prices. But that's why I thought that some of you, the board members, the new board members, have never seen the bus contract. They don't know how it works. They don't know we have we have, a bus service, and then we have contract buses, and this is for the contract buses. What about for the other buses? Did that in their
Employees.
contract?
Yeah, so what I did was, to your point, for new board members, I'll take a step back to get us to answering the question. So I gave you a packet. If you will go to Appendix 2, this is from the actual bus contract. It's a one-pager front and back. Appendix 2, it should just look like, standard contract language. Looks like this. So we're in year 2 of this current bus contract, and to Ms. Thurman's point, we of course contract with First Student on some routes, but we have also subcontractors. We have some employees that have been with us forever, and then we have independent contractors. Their contract is essentially the same, okay? And this page is how they get compensated. I'll give you, in my mind, the layman's terms of how they get compensated. They get an operations component, and then they get like a bus rental component. All right, so on the operations component, if you look under A, it says payment for route miles. That is the operations. All right, so in the operations, there are 2 components there. There's $1.43 that they get paid for every mile. It's a minimum of 70 miles. So if they run a route that's 45 miles, they still get paid for 70, okay? The second component of that is the fuel reimbursement, all right? And on the fuel reimbursement, they get paid an average of 6.5 miles per gallon, and we take an average of 5 locations across the city to get that average. So I'm going to stop right there, and there's a staple page that shows you kind of where we have been this school year with gas prices. And you'll see we pull them from across the county. Some of these are areas that it's more expensive, and we do that intentionally to make it fair across the board. But you'll see these are the actual averages that we've paid out this year for diesel fuel. All right, so the operations, $1.43 every mile, and then this fuel reimbursement that's paid out at an average of 6.5 miles per gallon. The second component is a bus rental, and they're essentially paid $2.46 per seat, all right, per seat on their bus rental. The other piece of those compensations, there's a 3% and a 2% increase year to year. So from last year to this year, they got a 3% operating increase and a 2% bus rental increase. Final piece of compensation they get, the board made this decision a number of years ago when we allowed contractors to start taking more than one route. Now contractors can take up to 5 routes. If they do that, they must give up their employee status, which they give up health insurance. So to compensate for that, If you're an independent contractor, you're getting a $9,500 a year stipend per route, okay? So I'll stop right there and just see if there are questions about the compensation, and then I'll get into this final sheet that looks really confusing. Any questions about compensation? So we're year 2 of a 4-year contract. So I'll go to this sheet, and I think, and I'm not making this recommendation, I just want the board to see what options are out there. What Robert Sharp and Brandon Allen and I spoke about is probably the easiest way to make an adjustment would be to adjust the miles per gallon. So right now we're paying it 6.5 miles per gallon. This sheet just shows you a comparison, all right? So if you look on the right-hand column, you'll see where it says 5.5 miles per gallon at the top. So that breaks down what the payments would look like as a district. So if we went to 5.5 miles from 6.5 miles, over the course of a year, we'd be paying about $186,000 more dollars in fuel costs to contract and employee drivers. You can go down to 5, 4.5, and 4. Those are there just for your information to see what adjusting that average per mile would do. On the left-hand side is basically showing you what we're paying out for a 70-mile route. And we use 70 miles just because that's the minimum. Again, if you're running a 45-mile route, you're still getting paid at a 70 miles per route. The second column there that says currently highest, our longest route is 142 miles. So you'll see what that route gets paid out every in a 20 payment installment, okay? I'll stop right there, and again, this is not recommendations, it's just showing, you know, what increasing the average mile per gallon would do to the budget.
Mrs. Jones?
So is, my question is, our contract company, First Student, are they facing these same dilemmas with diesel costs?
I mean, their contract has the same increase.
So we would have to look at this for owner operators and for them?
No, ma'am.
Only independent contractors.
I mean, we could, but there's nothing that I'm looking.
So there's nothing in their contract that says that, right?
There's
I mean,
nothing-
I didn't vote for the independent contract. You know, everybody knows that. I haven't.
There's
since
nothing in
Fort
their
Worth.
contract
So-
that ties them to the independent contractor contract.
Okay. Okay, then that's my question.
Okay. I know it's very confusing for the new people. It really is. It's a complicated thing. But let me ask you, what is your recommendation? I know you talked to some of the bus drivers. Where did we meet and think that this is something that might be doable, that we can?
I have not met with the
You haven't met with any of them?
contractors since,
Okay.
I mean, it's been after we did this contract, but Mr. Smith sat in on the committee a year and a half ago. This contract was approved in March of '21. I thought had really good meetings. I mean,
But
the contract, again, that average price of diesel fuel, I mean, you can see how frequently we're looking at it.
yeah.
And again, the majority of the routes, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's over for 50% of the routes are under 70 miles. So most of them are actually getting paid for more miles than what they're driving. I'm not, you know,
But
I just-
but in all fairness, they do a lot of deadhead miles. I mean,
Well, no,
absolutely,
yes.
because they
Yeah.
don't get paid. A lot of them have to
Yeah.
go from point A to point B to
Yeah.
get to where they're going. That's a lot of deadhead miles, and that's really not part of this conversation. We can have that
Yeah.
conversation later. But the price of fuel is what we need to do. What do you propose would be the most equitable thing to do here?
The only thing that I would say if the board wanted to consider is again, the example of changing the average price, the average mile per gallon. Again, right now we're paying it out at 6.5. that fluctuates. With the GPS, we actually are able to look at like what buses are getting what. You've got some older buses that may be getting, 5.2 miles per gallon. You've got some newer ones that may be getting 7.5 miles per gallon. So really the only recommendation I would have, and again, this is one of those fun times where I get to say it's y'all's decision, is to look at that average mile per gallon, and that's what I wanted you to see, kind of the budget impact of what it would do.
Well, it's a fact, if we don't get the kids to school, you're gonna have a job.
Yeah, and let me be clear,
so-
the contract drivers and employee drivers, I feel like we've had a really much better relationship moving forward with them. We've increased the routes. The board about 4 years ago really pressed on increasing the routes. We're up to over 100 routes that are driven by our contract drivers. We are put in the RFP the ability to pull routes from the contract side to give it to our employee and contract drivers. We've also taken away the ability of outside groups to be able to do field trips with regular school buses to ensure that our contract drivers are getting more options outside of the regular school day. If you're asking for the consideration, I would say the only consideration is to see the board's desire to lower the average mile per gallon that we're paying out. Again, right now it's at 6.5.
Hey, before we do that, could you clear up one thing for me?
Yes, sir.
So the $9,500 supplement is for, it says per service. Explain to me.
It's per route. So back when they were employee drivers, they were only allowed to have one route. I'm sure Mr. Bennett can remember why. It's something about employee, some law. When they gave up their employee status, they essentially gave up health insurance.
Right.
And the school system's contribution to health insurance at the time was $9,500. And so right now, we pay out per route $9,500. So if a contractor has 3 routes, they get $9,500, $9,500, $9,500.
Does it have to hire somebody?
That sounds awkward, but they have to use another driver to carry those routes, and so it's compensating for giving up health insurance.
All right,
Essentially,
that's, I was wondering how they covered more than one route. That answered my
They have to hire
question.
somebody, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
What are we paying per gallon at the pump today, right now? Well, I'm talking about for diesel.
So if you flip to the back of that stapled page, the last update that's on this sheet, and we've updated since then, but on November 4th, we were paying $5.01
Okay.
per gallon.
And then what, Ron, you said, what is it today? You said it was high?
I just heard, matter of fact, I heard that on the news today, that it was the highest day. I don't know if it's hit here yet. I heard it on the news this morning.
Google says 5:15.
Okay, well, let's assume it's 5:15. If you do adjust that, Dr. Robertson, to, the miles per gallon, would we adjust that again as diesel prices go down?
Well, I mean, by us taking the average of these 5 locations every, 7 to 10 days, that is compensating for the
Okay.
fluctuation.
So that would take care of that then?
Yeah, so you can see at a low, we were paying, back in August, $4.58 a gallon.
Yeah,
The average is that $5.34. So this school year, on average, we paid $5.34.
okay. And then back in July, we paid $5.40.
Yes, ma'am,
Right.
sir.
So, okay. So that would automatically adjust.
It currently is.
Well, those guys, our independents, do a good job, and they fill in many times when the first student couldn't cover routes and call on our independents. We need to make sure that we're doing right by those guys, but at the same time, this is kind of hard to understand. I don't know how you simplify it, but
I think that, again, taking the average adjusts for any fluctuation. If it goes up or it goes down. There's an adjustment there just based on the average. You know, this contract was approved, we're not even through a full 2 years of it.
Yeah.
But, you know, you've got options there if we want to take and y'all want to say, come back in December with better details on what it would look like for going to 5, 6, 5.5 miles per gallon.
We're not going to vote on that tonight anyway.
No.
So can you come back with a little bit, talk with the bus drivers and make sure that we're not doing something that's not going to help the problem.
Yeah. I haven't addressed one question that you had, and it's about the fuel. So we don't have access to, you know, it's not like we have a large gas tank sitting somewhere
Yeah.
that we've got access to fuel. But
We
one of
used
the
to.
benefits of, one of the benefits of working with First Student is that they do. They've got I can't remember how many gallons, I want to say it's 10,000 in Dalton, that as part of our partnership with them, they will allow, if it ever got to that point, our contract drivers to access, you know, they're just because they're such a large company, they're able to get their hands on fuel pretty easily.
So let me ask a question.
Mr. Keene, sorry, there's someone in front of you.
Oh.
Mrs. Black?
Sorry. The little boxes right here where it says like we're currently paying $6.7 million times 20 pay periods. Does that mean over 20 pay
Yeah,
periods?
that should be, sorry,
Okay.
good catch.
So every time I was saying times 20, like that made me a little nervous. Thank you for the clarification. Over 20 pay periods.
Yeah.
That amount is okay.
Yeah.
Mr.
Good
Keene?
catch.
So what account will this money come out of? The added money, I mean, that's,
Yeah, I mean, eventually, I mean, we could find stuff, you know, for the rest of the school year if you want to do that through savings. I mean, that's kind of built in, but we would just, any adjustment that was made going into fiscal year '24, we would have to pull that from funding that we're getting. I mean, these are the hard conversations about
Right.
classified employees, about sub pay, about teacher pay.
Right.
I mean, we've only got so much of a pot. And every time we increase something, we're gonna run out at some point.
Great. Mrs. Robinson?
How does the contract read on the frequency of adjusting based on the cost of fuel?
I should have printed the whole thing. I think that it reads every 2 weeks, but we do it about every 10 days. Can I fact check that and send it to you?
Because like others have said, I mean, their drivers are terribly important.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. So if the will of the board is to explore this further at the December meeting, I think additional information would be ideal. I mean, I certainly need a whole lot more information.
I would just like a recommendation to come after you talk to Brandon and Brandon talk with the bus drivers and make sure that what we're going to do.
If Mr. Smith's willing, we don't have a new one. He was the one then. If he's willing, we'll try to pull that group back together with Mr. Smith.
And just bring something to the board to let us know. Like I say, that I just don't want to vote on something and then say, well, that didn't really fix the problem. I want to be sure it's going to fix whatever problem, because we don't know how high it's going to go at this point. I mean, 2 years ago, we had no idea we would be sitting here today paying, you know, almost $5.50 for a gallon of gas, fuel. It was just, who knew?
Mr.
So-
Smith, are you willing to lead a working session? Okay, so we'll organize that and have that before the December meeting, which
Yes.
is only 3 weeks away. Okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
Great. Are there any more questions on this topic? Okay, great. We will move on to our University High quick update.
It's very quick. I'm going to put this in the board update tomorrow, but hopefully in December, we're going to bring to you guys an approval of an agreement with UTC to open up what we're going to call University High. It's going to be an access point for juniors and seniors across the county to actually go to finish their high school years on UTC's campus, have access to college courses, get a really great kickstart into UTC. They will stay connected to their current high school, so be able to still participate in sports, graduate with their high school, and do all that. We're very close. Great partnership with the UTC of making this almost free of charge to students. The contribution on the board side would be 4 teachers, a coordinator, and a secretary. And so I just wanted you to have the context before I put that in the board update tomorrow, so it's not caught off guard. Hoping to bring approval, in December for you to look at it, and obviously we can have individual conversations between now and then.
Great. Mrs. Thurman?
Yes, what is the difference in this and the collegiate high?
I had the same question.
So collegiate high, obviously is Chattanooga State. They work through an associate's degree. The big difference, a lot of kids, aren't as interested in collegiate high because they have to leave their current high school. So they give up like being able to be in the band, being able to play sports. This allows them to stay connected to their current high school. And it is, on a 4-year college track. So they'll be taking English Comp 1, college algebra, all those kind of general ed requirements that they could transfer to any 4-year college. So it's quite a bit different. But again, trying to open up just higher ed access points for more kids across the county.
How does the process work for acceptance into the program? Is it from
that's
the
one of the
principals
things. One of the things we're working through. There's going to have to be a minimum grade point average requirement. I think it's 3.0. Some of that is hard to be flexible with. And then from there, UTC will have some things. But UTC has been really amazing at working through this with us and being flexible to make sure that we're not trying to capture like necessarily the valedictorian of every school. We really want kids that maybe are thinking, I don't know if college, if I'm right for it. If we get them in there early and show them that they can do it, then hopefully more likely they're going to go and finish down the road. So we're not aiming for necessarily, the valedictorian.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Black?
When you say close to no cost to the student,
I think we're going to get to where it will be
okay,
no cost.
we have gifted and talented students at every income level, and I want this to be an opportunity available to everybody.
Yeah, we're very close. A lot of that
Okay.
is, UTC being really good partners working on it with us.
Great. Any more questions on that topic? No? Okay, we'll do a very quick committee update. Mrs. Jones, will you update us on the facilities committee?
So at the board retreat on, my dates are all jacked up now, November 4th and 5th. We talked about, Dr. Robertson and his team presented to us some information that we had requested as it relates to the current enrollment and space availability in the 79 schools that we support. And in doing that, he did provide us a list of all the schools, where they were capacity-wise, under capacity, over capacity, almost at capacity, those various things. And then presented to us some things to consider about looking at how to address the capacity issues. In that discussion at board retreat, which we were going to have this anyway because we talked about this last board meeting. But anyway, at that time, we selected the date to host a facilities committee meeting. It will be held on Monday, November 28th, 5:30 p.m. right here in the boardroom. The boardroom will be set up a little different, so I will go ahead and say that now. I like a more Socratic seminar style, so we'll sit more out at the tables and be able to talk. But there will be seats available for the public if they would like to attend. But we'll be discussing our current facility states, potential for prioritization on next steps to address facility needs, possibility of looking at some zoning issues as it relates to capacity and where we feel like we could meet those needs, and so forth and so on. This will be an ongoing discussion, so we'll start, our first meeting will be on that day, but I'm pretty sure and feel pretty confident that we will have several to follow that because this is an ongoing process. I want to say this because all the Howard student body, staff, and alumni were not here earlier when Mrs. Sharp spoke, but she did very eloquently and adamantly share with us your concerns, and those concerns are also what we talked about at board retreat, and some of that will be discussed in our initial conversations about facilities, okay?
Thank you so much. Mrs. Black, will you give us an update on the behavior working committee, or working group?
We've finalized the folks who are going to participate, and I was going to get with them tonight and get on the calendar for our first meeting of the disciplinary working group. We're going to look at. I also wanted to get a more fleshed out timeline of what you all need, so that we can meet our deadlines. Okay. So.
I mean, our plan, because we're working with teachers cabinet as well. I mean, it's going into the spring, leading to revisions to the co-op. So that committee actually has has more work to do too.
Right. Okay. Is the plan to have a meeting before the December board meeting, or will it take place probably after the December board meeting?
I honestly, this committee is going to have, the discipline committee is going to have to be like throughout the spring. I think that timeline is drawn out more. So.
Okay, great, thank you. And Mr. Wingate, do you have an update on policy committee or a meeting set for policy committee?
I don't have one right now, no. I will, I have connected with Ms. Shannon Moody and Victoria Mao, and so we'll have probably look for something happening either next month or right after the first of the year.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we're supposed to move into our discussion of the agenda. We could do a couple things. We could go ahead and move into that discussion, but I am very sensitive to the time that we have allotted to our flag and meditation leader, as well as our exemplars of excellence. So we could actually choose to take a break and then come back at 6, do that, and then work through our agenda as a voting session as well, or we can go ahead and move into it, but we will likely end up having to delay what time we start our voting session. So if there is a preference, does anyone have if everyone's okay with that, I'd rather just go ahead and take a break, and then we'll come back and have our voting session and do discussion during the voting session. Is that okay? Great. Well, then this work session is adjourned for the next 22 minutes. So go potty.